Yep, there we go. Well, I'll go ahead and get us kicked off. I want to thank everyone for joining us here today. We're really excited about every session, but we're extraordinarily excited about this one. One of the first reasons is because we hit 101 or 131, 34 registered guests today. So that's awesome. We're really excited about the growing Innov8 community. Our meetup groups hit 184 folks, and we're just really excited about keeping that going. And today is a really exciting day for us because we're talking about some things that are quite interesting, that are a little futuristic, but still happening today. Drummond Reed's going to be joining us and going to share some of his insights. But really quickly, before we jump into Drummond's talk, there's some efforts going on here at ASU, and not sure if you got a chance to hear or see, but there was recently an announcement made about some massive philanthropic gifts shared with ASU to redesign the institution and think about things like self-sovereign identity and establishing a trusted learner network at ASU. So Drummond and I have gotten an opportunity to work together quite a bit, which has been super awesome. And so let's jump to the next slide really quickly, Drummond, on Zoom. We'll just do some quick housekeeping. By this point, most of you know how to use Zoom, but we always like to just go over it really quickly just so everyone kind of knows where things are. So, just take a quick look here. I won't go through all of this because I think most of us already know how this works, but feel free to ask any questions later on or in the chat if you have them. So let's jump to the next one, Drummond. So I'm Timothy Summers. I'm the Executive Director of Cloud and Advanced Network Engineering Services at the University Technology Office. And I also lead our Third Horizons initiatives, which is about seeing and being what's next for the ASU enterprise. And let's jump to the next slide, Drummond, because I want to do a quick intro of you. Drummond Reed has been, doing identity or involved with identity for a very long time. I mean, over 2 decades. He is one of the folks that, when it comes to privacy, trust framework, security, self-sovereign identity, he's one of the folks that I work with and coordinate with, and just really consider a leader in this space. He's the Chief Trust Officer at Evernym. And after Evernym acquired Respect Network, where he was a co-founder and CEO, Drummond is also a member of the steering committee of the Trust Over IP Foundation and co-chair of the Governance Stack Working Group. At the Sovereign Foundation, he serves as a chair of the Sovereign Governance Framework Working Group, and he's a co-editor of the DID Decentralized Identifier Specification in the W3C DID Working Group. For 10 years, he served as co-chair of the OASIS XDI Technical Committee. I could go on and on about the things that Drummond has done, but frankly, I prefer to let him do it and share with you. So Drummond, without further ado, let's kick it over to you, man.
Timothy, thank you very much. I'm extremely excited about giving this talk. As Timothy knows, I was invited down to meet with him and a team he put together at ASU last fall to what I thought was sort of, give them an introduction to self-sovereign identity, this new area. And when I went down to that meeting, which was about a dozen people, they were like, within, like half an hour, I realized, oh my God, they're further along than almost any, first meeting I've ever had. And it was instead a deep dive seminar into the heart of the technology. And it was a fantastic day. We got to have dinner that night with Lev and the team. And I came away going, I got a whole different picture of how SSI is going to be adopted in education because of the kind of leadership that I saw there. So when Timothy asked me if I'd be interested in doing this talk, I was like, oh yeah. And I'm really gonna talk about the cutting edge of where I think this is going, because I believe ASU is and your audience are the ones that are going to be attuned to these problems, and if you're not yet, it will be pretty shortly. So let's dive into it. I'm going to talk about, I shortened this. It's a talk about the wallet wars, but who will own the wallet of the future? And by the end of this presentation, I hope it's going to be crystal clear to you how important that question is going to be, not just for ASU, not just for you as lifetime learners. I hope everyone on this webinar considers themselves a lifetime learner, but why control of that digital wallet is going to be absolutely at the heart of where we're going. So Timothy's already covered this background. Yes, I've been doing this for way too long, and I'm thinking of it now. It's like 20 years of pushing rock uphill, and then we got to SSI, and we hope we're going to get the boulder over the other side right now. Worked a lot of standards for a long time. Fascinating event called Internet Identity Workshop. It's 3 days of all open space, and it's been going on for 15 years, twice a year. The next one is next month. It went virtual last month, but it's just the most amazing conference. And almost every technology I'm going to mention here was initially born at that conference. And I do wear a lot of hats, and Timothy's already talked about this. I'm mostly going to, but I'm going to talk to you from the perspective of all of these things, mostly about the open standards and the progress of this new identity model and why it will matter to you, no matter what hat you wear attending this seminar, whether you're, ASU staff or a student or alumni or a member of the larger community, innovating, I think it's relevant to everyone. So I'm going to, they offered up, with the polling feature here of Zoom, and we have 90 minutes. It's going to be very interactive talk. And so, yes, you can multitask, that's fine, but pay attention when I say, okay, we got a poll here. All right. And so, and I'm going to make sure that there's at least one question for each of the 4 sections. It's going to get more intensive as we go on. Part 1, I'm just going to explain what is this thing called SSI. And then I am going to, for the folks who are like, I want to understand what's happening here, I will be explaining it. If you're not a technologist, don't worry, I'm not going to go super deep, but just enough to understand what's at stake here in the wallet wars. And we're going to wrap up by talking about what you are going to do about it. I'll leave that right there. So let's do the first poll right now. This is incredibly simple, just to make sure everyone is paying attention and knowing how to use. And we've highlighted, we're just going to use the yes, no buttons there. And whoever the polling folks are, I'm not sure if I'm the one who controls this or who, oh, I see polling there. Gotcha. How do I hate to say it, how do we ask this question here?
Aaron, will you walk Drummond through how we want to do the polls?
Well, the way to do it is to have them set up ahead of time. I didn't realize we were going that route. I figured you had a plan with the yes, no's. I think you can just push it and it will say it.
Yeah, that absolutely works too. In fact, we don't have to have them preset up. So it's pretty easy. On your participant screen, you just hit the yes or no button. You do have to open the participant screen. I can see it right here. The one thing I can't see, I think the host does, is what the totals are. But I'm sitting here looking at it right now, and yeah, I would say that probably the folks that I'm not seeing green buttons are okay. Actually, this is good. I was going to say click the red if you do not use a smartphone of any kind. That's totally fine. Yeah, as I expected, we're seeing the vast majority of folks are using smartphones. And again, it's not actually a requirement of SSI. There's a whole part of it we call guardianship that will take care of all those who don't. But yeah, this totally makes sense. All right, you can, I can clear all, and I'll go ahead and do that there. So we'll clear us up for the next one. And we'll just put that out there and close this. Okay, so what is this thing called SSI? Why is this popping back up for me? Intro poll. I'm just going to share results and go away. All right. Oh, it keeps coming back up for me. All right, there we go. So the simplest way I always turn around and explain the basics of SSI is to start with the wallet. And yes, we're going to talk a lot about digital wallets today, but the essence of SSI you can actually understand just from the way we identify ourselves in the real world today, right? We all know how to do this. We've learned this since we're kids, and I'm happy to say it's self-sovereign and it's decentralized. What we mean there by self-sovereign is you control your wallet. You don't control who will give you a credential inside of the wallet or even what's on it. That's up to the what we call the issuer of the credential. But you do control what credentials you put in your wallet, where you take it, and who you will use it to prove your identity with. That's the self-sovereign part. You actually own, I own this piece of leather as well, and we'll get into that, the digital equivalent of that. It's also decentralized. There is no one authority, right? If you live in a country, yes, you're going to have to get a government credential to prove your identity in that country in certain contexts. Or you know, if you at a certain bank, you can get a certain set of cards, you know, credit cards or financial cards there. But there is no one issuer for the world. There's no even one issuer for any, you know, one context. Universities all over the world, like ASU, issue diplomas and various academic credentials. It's a decentralized system. It works every place. Compare that with what we have with usernames and passwords on the internet today, right? We don't have anything like that. Instead, that's what we have is usernames and passwords. And I mean, if you just ask your question, well, how could I prove I have a degree from ASU? How could I prove I'm a professor there? How could I prove I'm a student? We just don't have digital credentials, or we have not had anything remotely. We've had what we call centralized identity systems where you log into one centralized system. That's the way I used to work with networks before the internet. And then when we went to the internet, we said, oh, okay, that's great. Federated identity systems where I can log in one place and reuse that elsewhere. Google or Facebook or Twitter or LinkedIn, those are all examples of social login, very, very large federated identity systems. But none of them can turn around and prove any of the things I just asked you. So the basic idea of SSI is we want to go from physical credentials in a wallet or wherever else you might have them to digital credentials you can prove online. And if you're interested at all, there's an entire webinar at Evernym that you can go and find out more. What is behind that is this magical little thing called the trust triangle. And it is not complicated. It's just three core roles: the issuer of the credential, the holder that puts it in their wallet and takes it to any place that's a verifier. Classic example, I've got I live in the state of Washington. Washington driver's license is issued to me by the state of Washington. It goes into my wallet. I go to the airport, show it to a TSA agent. They verify it. We all know how they work physically. To make this work digitally, obviously we need a way to verify those credentials with cryptography. And the magical little piece that is unlocked our ability to do that in a decentralized way is this little thing right here in the middle called Verifiable Data Registry. That's the official specification term for it. But one of the best ways that obviously, that we can now instantiate that is blockchain technology. We entered the era of self-sovereign identity when the identity folks, that I've been part of that community for a long time, met the blockchain folks, and we had a baby, and it's called self-sovereign identity. So I want to give you a really very practical example. You can imagine all the kinds of credentials that you already have today that could become, but let's talk about credentials you don't have yet, but which this technology is now being sort of sucked into providing an answer for. We all know what we're dealing with COVID and just how big of a crisis it is and an impact on the global economy. When this first was announced back in, this story came out in April, that a whole coalition, which has grown to over 100 companies and 300 individuals, we call the COVID Credential Initiative. It was, we need digital credentials to deal with COVID. Now, what the press seized on is this unfortunate phrase, the immunity passport, which was the idea that you could start getting digital credentials for testing and start to use that to safely go about your life. Well, that is very controversial in a whole bunch of ways. Besides the science and the effectiveness, how long would a test last, even the discrimination issues. How many folks, only folks that have smartphones that can get this, you know? So that's not the best example. There's a much better example, which we're all facing here in the next, well, cross your fingers, you know, as soon as the end of the year is what I just heard earlier today. Immunizations, right? As immunizations become available, it's going to be critical for people to be able to prove I've been immunized, right? It literally could become a gating factor to getting in or out of a building or an event. If we try to, do all that with paper or plastic, it's going to be a nightmare. But if we can deliver that digitally and still cover folks that don't have smartphones or that need to do it, if we cut down what has to be done in paper to a fraction of that, it potentially is going to be a lot more successful. That's still to come, but there is a COVID-related credential that is actually in production today. There's another problem you can solve. Prove you have the credentials as a healthcare, as a worker, I mean a doctor or a nurse or a critical care worker in healthcare. This is not a, this isn't a hypothetical. In the UK, where they have nationalized medicine, the NHS in the UK, they faced the COVID crisis. They had already done a pilot of digital wallets, verifiable credentials, SSI, last year, and just to prove it out, because their own study was that in the NHS with 2,500 hospitals and healthcare facilities, doctors and nurses move around between them to, for specialties and to address, surges. That verifying a doctor or nurse at a new hospital, they added all up to 44,000 doctor hours per year were going into the paperwork involved there, which if you can cut that down is 44,000 doctor hours that could go into actual treatment of patients. Well, when COVID came along, suddenly this became a huge crisis, and they said, we need to accelerate it. Something that might have taken the next couple of years to roll out, they wanted literally in weeks. So the digital staff passport, what they call it there, is has now been implemented. It's not in very many of the hospitals. I mean, it's going as fast as the program can go. But this is an example where digital credentials in your smartphone, that you could literally, a doctor can go into a hospital, and what does it actually look like? What's the ceremony? What does the user experience look like? I think you've almost all done it, right? In fact, I'm going to ask you in a minute how many of you here have done it, because it's basically almost identical experience of using your smartphone with a mobile boarding pass to get on a plane. It's not very complicated, and that's the idea. Doctor would literally come in, scan a QR code like on an iPad or something at a healthcare facility, say, yes, I'm willing to share my doctor's staff passport credential, and within a second or two, it's green or red. And if it's red, obviously there are problems, but if it's green, you're through. Everything has been checked and audited, and there's a whole audit trail of that, and it's privacy protecting. So that's all there really is that you need to understand here about the user experience, which leads us to our next polling question. And again, this is just a simple yes or no button on your, can't get my mouse over there. What's going on? Oh, I see. I moved my, I have to close my participant window and reopen it here. I can't get over to my polling, but yes, if you have used a mobile boarding pass, please click yes right now. I'm seeing a ton of chat questions come. Oh, I see. I don't know if these are questions or just, I'll get the chat open in another window here. All right, I'm seeing, okay, I am seeing two folks that have not used, three that haven't used a mobile boarding pass, and a whole lot of green. So I'm as I expected. Most people know what the ceremony is like. Incidentally, I'll just share, I was an extreme skeptic on that. I'm like, look, I'm getting on a plane. I've got a whole business trip to worry about. I'm not going to take a risk on something in my phone. And I was that way for about, I don't know, 2-3 years. And finally, I had to, I don't know, I had to get one. I didn't get a printer or anything else. And the experience was so seamless. I'm like, wait a minute, this is actually safer, with the one exception of I actually lose my phone. But at that point, I also travel with an iPad, so I had backup that way. I'm like, I'm switching over, and now I'll do anything I can to avoid the paper. And I think you're going to find that will be true with digital credentials. So thanks everyone for participating in that poll. We'll go ahead and just clear that one up, and we'll pop into part 2 here. And this is where we're gonna dive down a little bit, and just again, I want you to understand. We won't go too deep, but the basics of how how this works, so that you can appreciate really what is on the line in the wallet wars. So this is that same trust triangle you've seen before. I call it the Tinker Toy version of it, and I'm just going to step you through. So what is actually going on? How do we make digital credentials work? They're formally called verifiable credentials. That's what the standard is. And by the way, I should say, we're not making this up. The folks that were anticipating this started 6 years ago at W3C to say, if we're going to have interoperable digital credentials everywhere, we got to standardize the format and the signatures on the credential. And that became what's now the Verifiable Credentials data models, the name of the standard. And that's been through the whole W3C standards process, the standards body for the web, to the point where it was finalized as a full W3C standard last September. So we're not talking about, you know, hey, this is a new idea and we want to go out there and figure out, make work. A lot of work's gone into how do we standardize the credential and the signatures. There's a supporting standard called decentralized identifiers, which is the second foundational standard. That one has actually been just about as old, but it didn't get to the W3C quite as early. So it is about halfway through the final standardization process. The spec should be what we call feature complete and frozen in the next 2 months. But it's already widely deployed out there, and that's called DIDs. I'm one of the editors of that spec. So keep those in mind, 2 open standards for how to do this. Here's how it works. And now we're going to take that same credential, that driver's license credential I talked about to get on a plane. We'll just walk through the steps. The issuer, in order, before they start issuing that credential, they're going to write their public key that's needed to verify digital signatures on credential. I'm going to write it to a verifiable data credential, a blockchain or distributed ledger or something where it's like very clear that anyone can check and say that really is that DID address for that has that public key at this point in time. And it's just like with Bitcoin, you put a transaction on there within minutes, it's like impossible to, or nearly impossible. Even nation states can't go in and change that. So it gives us this very strong publicly verifiable place to check that. So there's some other, you know, get down to the details. There's some other cryptographic metadata there for doing things like revocation and things like that. But bottom line, they get set up that way. Now with the private key, they can issue a verifiable credential and they can digitally sign it. That goes to the holder and it goes into their digital wallet. And it's not tied to any specific device. That you know, obviously smartphones, that's why we're asking about them. But any device that has a secure computing environment on it, and almost every device we use today has that. But your car can have it, your TV can have it, can have a digital wallet where it's storing those credentials. And now when you go to a verifier, it's the same place today you'd have to prove your identity, username and password, multi-factor authentication, all the other things you have to do. Now you can go and present what we call a proof of that credential to the verifier. That proof is going to contain the DID, just as the credential did, of the issuer, which means the verifier has one lightning fast operation to verify the current public key and therefore verify the digital signature on that proof. That does not mean that all the data in that credential that you might be sharing there is true. It does mean that the issuer has said, I issued this credential, here's the data I'm giving you. And that means the trust, the verifier has to trust that that issuer, you know, I can trust the data that the issuer is sending. The difference is there is no integration needed here at all. There is no identity protocol on the internet today that works that way. They all have, the verifier has to go back and check with the issuer. Is this person really logged into Google right now? Are they logged into Facebook? Are they logged into their bank? Are they logged in wherever, right? It's all account-based identity. When we move to digital wallets and digital credentials, we get away from that. And we also get away from the privacy issue. You don't have issuers anymore that can watch every place you're going and logging in around the internet or transacting. So this is the basic model. That's all you really need to understand about the trust triangle in order to understand, okay, this is how digital credentials and SSI-based digital identity is going to work. We are, by the way, we're going to have a whole discussion period at the end. So unless you have a super pressing question, just note it, hang on to it, feel free to put it in the chat, and we'll get to it as we go through this. Okay, now, let's make sure this is clear. We're going to take that doctor's passport example that NHS is doing and just step through how it's actually working today. Okay, again, this is in production for the first doctors and nurses using this in the UK. The issuer is the NHS. It's the various hospitals and systems. I'll say a little bit more about that in a minute. They're the issuer, they're the ones, and they have written their DID to a blockchain that's been designed just to support self-sovereign identity. It's called Sovereign. It's got a nonprofit governance. I'm the chair of the governance working group there. And the nodes of the sovereign blockchain that's running Hyperledger Indy, if you're interested, open source code, are all around the world. There are about 75 nodes running by trusted institutions. We hope ASU is one of those soon, not yet, but there are other universities, financial institutions, actually some government agencies. IBM's one of the bigger ones. It's just a whole power law of different institutions running it. So that's where DIDs were being written today. That's where NHS is writing them. Now, with the private key, they're now able, they've designed a specific credential called the doctor's passport, staff passport, the schema for which, by the way, also lives on the sovereign blockchain. And now they can sign it with their private key, okay? Now that goes into the wallet of the doctor or nurse who is now being authorized. And now they're able to provide a proof specifically of that license that they have to any facility in the NHS that is running the verification software, which, by the way, is open source. There's all kinds of both open source and commercial implementations that are already coming out for that. Now, that contains the DID of the issuing unit of NHS, so the verifier can quickly read the public key off the blockchain and verify that is a valid staff passport issued. And because who needs it right now, the verifiers are NHS, they're going to trust it, right? That's the whole point. It's a trust community by itself. But one of the reasons NHS is going down this direction is, wow, a doctor or nurse and for NHS can have a valid identity. Any verifier in the world could prove that, which is valuable to the NHS, but it's very valuable to those doctors and nurses. This is one of the ways where, as we move to digital credentials, we get way beyond your username and password today is valuable at exactly the site you have that, or if it's Google or Facebook or whatever, you can now reuse that, essentially leverage that at other sites, but you're still stuck to their network, to that. Now your wallet goes everywhere with you, just like it does in the real world. So this is the essential breakthrough that is represented by digital identity here. And I'm seeing a note here. I'm just looking over. Yes. Okay. Great advanced question from Mr. Timothy Ruff about Carrie. We'll get to that in the Q&A later. All right. Now there are a couple special features here that I want to point out because I really want you to appreciate. It's not just we have digital credentials, digital wallets here, but why these digital wallets are going to be more important even than you might appear right now. And the first one of those is it's not just about how you connect to organizations and how you get issued or use credentials, okay? And so I'm going to go back to this picture and talk about not what's happening down here at the blockchain, but these relationships up here. And again, we'll talk about the doctors and nurses. So a doctor or nurse that has a relationship with NHS here, they don't have to go and get a DID on a blockchain in order to establish that relationship and actually have a secure communications channel on this leg. They can use what we call a peer DID, meaning their wallet. And by the way, all three of these, we're only showing the wallet here for the holder, but all three of them have wallets because everyone in an SSI system, you're going to play all three roles. Institutions are going to have wallets, so they're going to have credentials. They're going to be able to prove their identity to you. It really is ASU. It really is your bank. It really is your government, and phishing becomes nearly impossible. But they're also going to be even individuals, we're going to be issuing credentials, right? The kinds of things when we issue an endorsement on LinkedIn or we want to validate that we, a friend's blog, we're going to be able to do that with our own digital credentials. We'll be issuers then. So my point is here, when you form digital relationships in this world using these open standards we're talking about, you can have DIDs that are not on a blockchain. They're just shared directly between the two of you. Again, they're called peer DIDs. And when you form this relationship, the two digital wallets will literally generate key pairs, generate a DID, and share it in both directions. And now that channel that you've established is like no address and no communications address, channel we've ever had in history. There is no intermediary at all. Yes, the messages are going to go through like ISPs and routers and things out there, but there's no phone company in the middle. There's no social network in the middle. It literally is whatever those two entities are, establishing a channel that they can use for secure communications in either direction for everything they want forever. And when I say forever, the large cryptographic numbers involved here are unique for all time. I know it's a little hard to wrap your head around, but there's no reason they ever need to change. The only reason that channel would need to break is one or both parties said, I don't need it anymore. And there are reasons, obviously, to do that, but otherwise, you know, and I want to make it clear that's one relationship. Oh, when the holder goes to the verifier, the first time you would, you know, for instance, connect and start using your wallet with a TSA, bingo, it's another private pairwise peer DID relationship. Those DIDs and the associated public and private keys, of course, go in your wallet. Are you getting the picture now that this wallet is not just about proving identity, it's the address book of the future. This set of peer DIDs you will create for all of your personal and organizational relationships, and guess what else is going to have, you're going to have peer DIDs with? All the things in your life. When we finished a project on decentralized key management for the US Department of Homeland Security, the thing they wanted us to show, besides people and organizations, they wanted to show how a digital wallet would unlock your car. And we showed them the code and we said, all based open standards, here's how you will form a connection and literally get a credential, the registration. And if you can prove you have the registration for your car, the car will let you unlock it and drive it. So imagine that, you're gonna have credentials, the actual physical keys or electronic keys you use for your car today, you're gonna be able eventually to replace with your phone, your digital wallet. And imagine now you could give your child a credential that delegates them the ability to drive the car between certain hours or within a certain radius of your house or things like that. Use your imagination. So I want to make sure that it's clear that you have this other option, and there's a very important privacy aspect to this. Public blockchains are not where you want to have any personal data for GDPR reasons. So above this line, all of these relationships and exchange of credential, that takes place entirely off-chain, and that means it can be fully GDPR compliant. The only folks that should need to have to use an immutable data registry are organizations that are in issuer roles. And this is important because as individuals, we don't want our personal data going on immutable public registries. Now again, there is oodles of detail behind this and new technologies emerging up, like Timothy Ruff mentions in the chat, Carrie. Happy to go into detail about that or answer questions towards the end, but I don't want to go too deep here. All right, I have one more thing I want to cover, actually two more sort of key points on the how, and then we'll move into you know, the really juicy policy topics coming up here. Biometrics. Been a hot topic in identity for a long time because, you know, they're very difficult to spoof, right? It is something you are. Where do they play in this whole trust triangle picture? Well, the easy answer is they play exactly the same place they do today in your everyday computing when you're using a biometric, fingerprint, or face scan, for instance, to unlock your device, to verify, to basically authenticate yourself to your device. And basically every digital wallet that's out there now that's being produced, SSI wallets, they all use that protection so that you can, you need a biometric to unlock. You can use a password as well, just like with your phone. There's another way to do it, but you want to make the biometric as strong and as convenient. You can leverage it right there. Now, how do users and verifiers actually know that's you? Like we have an iPad, both my wife and I are registered on a particular iPad we had. So you can then extend it to, well, what about liveness detection? Can you apply the biometric in real time, or actually turn around and use the camera to verify it really is the person that a particular credential was issued to? And the most advanced topic is actually doing remote biometrics, so that you don't have to have a device that you've registered with, but you can actually verify that. Gets into a lot of privacy questions, but I just want to make sure anyone watching this thinking, where do biometrics fit? The answer is, as long as you do it in a privacy respecting manner, they can be leveraged with SSI the same way they can with federated or centralized identity architectures. So that's biometrics. Now I want to talk about one more critical component, which is not technology. It's the glue we're going to use between the technology and how we're actually going to apply it in business and in the legal infrastructure and socially. And it's called governance frameworks. And the easiest way to introduce this is talk about, well, so you got this trust triangle, but as it expands out, and let's take the example of ASU and education. Let's say you're verified as an employer, and they just want to know you're applying for a job. Well, and you say, I have a degree from ASU, and you've got a credential in your wallet, and you can give them a proof of that. How are they supposed to know that's ASU, that's the DID for ASU, right? There are thousands of universities in the world that they might be fine taking a credential from, but how are they supposed to know those thousands of universities? Well, the answer is a second trust triangle we call the governance trust triangle. And we call that the governance authority, whoever it is. Don't think just government. Certainly governments are governance authorities, but literally any trust community of any size, universities, consortia, businesses, cities, churches, neighborhoods, whoever it is says, we want to have a set of rules or policies around digital trust. Who issues our credentials? What are the credentials? What are the policies for them? What can verifiers rely on? This is a way to do it. And I give you, it might look like, oh, really? Does it work this way? Well, the largest trust networks in the world today use this, and here's an obvious model. MasterCard is a governance authority for a network in which they authorize all the banks and credit unions and financial institutions that issue a credential to holders today. In fact, they call them card holders. And that's a credential you use whenever you go to a merchant to prove you're authorized to make a transaction. This is exactly how they've scaled one of the world's largest trust networks. And I'm not just making up this example. I have permission from MasterCard to use this example because they're one of the founding members of the Trust Over IP Foundation, which I'll tell you more about in a minute, because they see that this model is what they should be using for identity, not just for payments. So let's take another example here. Let's talk through that doctor's passport example. How are they using governance framework? Well, the governance authority there is NHS. You could say it's the British, the UK Parliament, but the agency is the NHS. And as I said, they need to scale what's essentially a decentralized system of 2,500 hospitals and healthcare institutions. So they are the ones who actually know, well, who are the authorized issuers? They're actually going to maintain a very simple thing we call a member directory, which is nothing more than a list of all the DIDs of those authorized issuers, and as they register them. Now, those issuers can turn around and as authorized issuers, they issue the credentials to the doctors and nurses we talked before. And when you go to a hospital or any other verifier, all they need to be able to verify in that proof, that DID is it an authorized member of that governance framework, of that trust community. So they can scale to all of, and the beautiful thing is, again, that as a governance authority, any verifier in the world who says, I know who the NHS is, right? One entry in their system saying, yeah, NHS, governance authority, I know that's good for these types of credentials, can verify that is a legitimate credential. And spoofing that or breaking into that is going to be really hard. So that's why governance frameworks, they're not a technology tool. There's a little bit of technology, like I said, the directory, but they're primarily, this is the glue to take SSI and apply it in different businesses, legal jurisdictions, social environments, such that we can produce digital trust any place that's needed. I'm seeing a great exact comment. I'm glad it got across. Moses says, in essence, the governance authority becomes a certificate authority in their domain. And you're absolutely right. If you're familiar with today's digital trust infrastructure, I should have put this in as a poll question. How many folks are aware that in the digital trust you're using on the internet today, the lock in your browser when you go to a website that forms an encrypted connection is based on a list of trusted certificate authorities. Those are the issuers of our current digital certificates for encryption from roughly 200 certificate authorities around the world. Okay, that seems like a reasonable number, except who actually makes that decision of who that list is? 5 browser manufacturers. No government's involved, nothing else. They work with an outfit called WebTrust, which is a bunch of accountants around the world that are authorized to do that. But that's it. That is the trust infrastructure for the internet as a whole today is 5 browser manufacturers deciding who the trusted certificate authorities are. And it's taken years and years to get to that. So that's why we're dealing with such a closed and narrow, and it works for what we need it for, but we're trying to adapt it to all kinds of things that it wasn't designed to serve. So with SSI and trust over IP, we'll talk in a minute, we're generalizing this model so it can be used anywhere. All right. Oh, I see. We do have some digital identity and federation experts on the call, and great. We'll dive into that. All right. I want to give you one more example because we're here at ASU, and Timothy mentioned the Trusted Learner Network project that ASU is shepherding. Let's just look at that. The Trusted Learner Network, however it ends out ultimately deciding it wants to be a governance authority, is a way that they can, educational institutions, any place that want to be able to issue credentials recognized under the Trusted Learner Network, again, whatever directory or federation service they set up to do that, they now all can issue credentials to any learner of any kind that, for instance, employers will be able to verify, and all employers will need to know, that credential is issued on the Trusted Learner Network. This is why there's so much leverage now in the progress towards verifiable educational credentials, which is why Timothy and his team are at the cutting edge. Okay, I'm almost done with all the hows. I do want to make one final point, which is, okay, all this powerful new stuff, how are we actually going to standardize it and make it all interoperable? And I'm going to leave out a bunch of the past history and just go to something called the Trust RFP stack, which was emerged out of the development of SSI technology, and it turned into this 4-layer picture you're seeing here. And when talking about technology architectures, you create stack protocols. What's called the TCP/IP stack is a protocol stack that's in every one of our devices that we use today to connect to the internet and to exchange packets. It was the emergence of that stack in late 60s, early 70s that actually led to the development of the internet. And it was not initially the plan for that to win. It was basically, that was a Rebel Alliance, and there was a much bigger thing called OSI that was going to be, Death Star, put it that way. It was going to rule the universe, and then bingo, the Rebel Alliance actually won. So we're talking here about a different stack. There is a technology stack, the Trust over IP stack, and it is these 4 layers, which I've just explained to you. At the bottom here, this is that blockchain verifiable data registry. We call them public utilities. Then there's the wallets and agents that are the analogy sometimes used. These are the roads. These are the cars. At the next level up, where we have the Trust Triangle Credential Exchange, that's what the passengers are actually doing, and now we go out and build towns and cities and businesses, everything on top of that. So that's, these are the 4 layers. What we realized that led to the development of the stack was, it's one thing with pure technology at the layer of the internet to just do it with technology, but with trust, we have to have a parallel governance stack. Those governance frameworks are so important. We actually need them to work at all 4 levels. We need governance frameworks for layer 1 to govern utilities like the sovereign network. That's why the Sovereign Governance Framework Working Group that I co-chair has been working for 4 years. We have, I think it's 16 documents that compose our governance framework just for one public utility. Now there's 6 or 7 others that are now emerging around the world, including national ones. So we need governance frameworks for that. At layer 2, we need governance frameworks, and we'll get to this point, for your agents and wallets. Do they have sufficient security and privacy protections and data protection? Usability, do they meet usability requirements? It's going to be very important. Layer 3, that's where we've already given those examples, right? The same reason credit card networks need to, you sign a cardholder agreement when you get a credit card. Well, now we're going to need them for all kinds of credentials out there. The verifier is going to need to know, what can I rely on? Who is that producing that credential? What can I rely on so that I can trust it and make my trust decisions? And all of that supports layer 4 whole digital trust ecosystems. And think healthcare, think travel, think, you know, finance, all kinds in finance, but also critically education. Trusted Learner Network is part of the larger effort called Internet of Education. That's going to be one of the largest digital trust ecosystems in the world. And I think every one of us as individuals are going to be members of that. You know, as lifelong learners, we're going to all be part of the Internet of Education. So let's build it right. Now, last point I want to make here is, oh, that's right, I did build up the stack here. You can see these 4 layers. I just talked through it on that previous diagram. This stack and the importance of this stack being standardized so we can all use it just like the TCP/IP stack is the reason that in May, we launched the Trust over IP Foundation at the Linux Foundation, hosted there just like Hyperledger and Decentralized Identity Foundation, some almost 300 projects there. And you can see the mission statement right here, define a complete architecture for internet digital trust that combines the cryptographic trust at the machine layers and the human trust. And I just want to mention, we launched in the first week of May with 27 member companies. In 4 months, it's grown to 120 member companies and over 40 individual contributors. We started with 4 working groups, we're up to 6, the 7th is coming next. It's really moving fast. I want to say congratulations to ASU and Timothy's leadership for becoming a member. And you want to learn anything more about that, trustoverip.org. Great. Oh, yes. And Taylor, thank you for some good links are going in here on the chat on how to follow up with this. Okay, check-in time here. That's good. We're about 45 minutes in. And by the way, I'm going to finish up here probably within the next 15 minutes. And then we're just going to talk about this. I'm looking forward to one of the most, you know, interactive, deep dialogues I hope we can have about this, because this is a super interesting topic. So let's go to our next poll before we go into part 3. Now, this is a more specific question, and this isn't a question, have you done this in the last week or the last month? To all of you that said, yes, I have a smartphone, if it's, you know, within the last couple of years, you have a wallet on there that enables either Apple Pay or Google Pay. And I'm not saying those aren't the only 2 wallets, there are other smartphones, but this question is simple. Please answer yes if you have actually used Apple Pay or Google Pay on that smartphone ever. And feel free to answer no if you don't, if you haven't, or you won't. I definitely know. So we'll just give it a minute here to, and yes, whoever is, some folks have been compiling the answers, and that's really super helpful. In fact, I can leave it up for a minute if someone wants to be able to compile this. Okay, so I'm seeing like 10, 12, roughly 12 no's, but I'm seeing about 20 yeses. Okay, so clearly the idea of having you know, a digital wallet where you can actually move money is something folks are getting pretty used to. That's great. I myself, interesting enough, were more reticent than my wife. It's not that I didn't necessarily trust it, it's just I wasn't sure I wanted to start to move money that way. What finally got me over that, of course, was, okay, now I want contactless payment. It turns out my wife, as soon as COVID hit, she's like, okay, I'm going all Apple Pay on everything that she could. And she's not a real evangelist for it. So I love Scott's point there. He's waiting for Apple and Google to be trust ORP compliant. All right, that's a perfect thing for us to be discussing. Okay, whoever is helping compile that, if you grab the stats on that, that'd be great. I'll wait to clear that before we do the next one. All right, let's go into part 3. Again, no more technology now. Now we're just going to talk. Oh, thank you very much, Timothy. We're going to talk about what the stakes are on the table here. I think we've hopefully at this point set up, you know, what's going on here with this thing. Why is SSI and digital wallets, digital credentials such a big deal? Now let's really talk about what's going to be at stake. All right. This is all led into an article that was posted just 2.5 weeks ago on Forbes by David Birch. And if you haven't heard of David, I put him as basically one of the world's leading experts on certainly payments. His company, Consult Hyperion, for instance, designed the payment system contactless used by the London Underground, right? When you take the tube in London, which has switched over from Oyster cards, which were a really good smart card. I've had mine for like a decade, but now it's your phone. I mean, you can still use the Oyster card, but that's the whole idea. Is they wanted to move over to contactless. The volumes are incredible what they have to do there, and also, you know, the security and everything else. And David's Consult Hyperion designed that whole system for them. I don't know of anyone in the world that's more savvy about the combination of identity and money. 2 books he's written, Identity is the New Money, and the second one's called Before Babylon Beyond Bitcoin. Highly recommended if you're interested in those 2 subjects. Just fantastic. Yeah. Oh, thank you. Nathan's already posted the article I'm about to talk about here, and if anyone wants to look up those books and post those, again, it's just fascinating. I don't know of anyone who knows, and that's why when Dave posted this article and I read through it, I'm like, I got all the material I need for this talk here. In fact, it's such good material, I'm literally just going to read you some excerpts of the most relevant things from this article. Again, this is just like 2.5 weeks old, cutting edge. Dave said, if Apple or Google wanted to replace my wallet, and the whole lead into the article is about that's where it's going, they'd have to replace my driving license, my loyalty cards, my rail discount pass, my travel insurance, my health insurance document, my blood donor card. You get the point. It's exactly what we've been saying. Every credential you have in your wallet today, plus many things you don't, like you don't carry your diploma in there, but all of those things, that's what they're going to need to do. In the real world, I only have 20 or 30 of those cards, right? In my wallet, I probably, if I counted them, I probably have roughly 20. But in the virtual world, I have hundreds, if not thousands of logins and passwords and user IDs. And that's only for proving identity, let alone other credentials we might want to prove. Replacing my Amex card was easy. The phones already do that. Replacing my driver's license is more complicated. Allowing me to use that driver's license to rent a car in another country is just my phone. That's hard. But in the long term, it's much more valuable. That's what I've been saying all the way up to this point, this is important. Now here's the scary part. The next paragraph after that part in the article says, Apple has recently registered a number of patent claims across the general field of verified claims of identity, which have quite rightly attracted some attention. We filed a patent application in July with U.S. Patent and Trademark Office, describes the technology it is trying to develop to replace traditional driver's licenses, passports, and varied ID cards, like government ID cards. In fact, Apple wants to control means of presenting and verifying identity through devices, including iPhones. It's a signal to the industry that the wallet wars are about to heat up. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the wallet wars, coming to a phone near you. And if you're an undergrad, I expect a good part of this will play out before you even graduate. By the way, if you haven't seen 1917, I personally am a big film buff, believe it should have won the Academy Award. But it doesn't matter. If you haven't seen it, see it. It's fantastic. Get all your popcorn beforehand because you're not going to want to leave. It's just an amazing, amazing film. Okay. So the wallet wars is a very, very natural term for this because everyone understands where that came from. Those of us who, unfortunately, fall on the other side of the digital native part, where the non-natives have lived through the browser wars. I actually wouldn't necessarily say they extend all the way to 2020, but I found this graphic that was nice. And this, by the way, I don't know exactly where it's dated, but it's a ways back. We had Safari and then Chrome here, and then Firefox was still ahead. But the big winner at this point in the wallet wars was IE. You know, if you're paying attention, I love this graphic that I found, which is a lot more accurate. You know, I don't know if I call it game over, but it turns out that the relative size of these icons is pretty close to the distribution today. By different stats that I was checking, Chrome is easily 2/3 of the market, if not more. The only place where there's really significant competition is mobile, and because Safari is the default on iPhones. But it's a very, very tilted playing field, okay? But it was enormous competition between the browser manufacturers, because if that's the car you're driving on the internet today, then having, you know, being able to control the machinery of that car and influence where you're going to drive is just extraordinarily valuable. If anything, the valuations of those tech companies involved there are even bigger illustration. I think most folks are aware that, you know, it took over 20 years for Apple to get to $1 trillion valuation, and 21 weeks for it to get to a $2 trillion valuation. That's how much people and investors recognize the dependency that we all have on our devices as we entered the pandemic era. So I love this quote from one of my favorite folks in the industry, Daryl O'Donnell, who recognized what, you know, the pivotal role of digital wallets and started something called the State of Digital Wallets report, which was commissioned by a number of financial service providers, I think mostly in Canada. They're always leading in digital identity. I don't know what they have in the water there in Canada, but anyway, it's like 2 years he's been maintaining that, updating it constantly, and I love this quote: "The wallet wars will make the browser wars look like child's play," and I think that's going to be true. So let's get to the final part here before we go into our interactive discussion. What are you going to do about it? Yes, you. I'm not just going to talk about what I'm going to do about it, or what the companies in the space are going to do about it, or what governments are going to do about it. I want you to think about what you're going to do about it. And here we're going to get nice interactive. I'm going to go over and clear all in the polling, because I'm going to ask a series of questions here, and I really want you to think about each one of these as I ask. And Timothy, please do keep the totals as we go through this. Let's start with wallets, okay? After everything I've explained about a digital wallet here, simple question: would you ever buy a wallet, a physical leather wallet, or maybe it's metal or something, that restricted what cards and credentials you could put in that? Yes or no? Green or red? And I'm going to give you a minute. Again, I want to make sure that we're going to get some good stats out of this. Okay, I am seeing one yes, a few yeses maybe. Buying a wallet that would restrict those cards. I see 3 yeses, 4 yeses. Now again, I'm talking about a physical wallet that would say come with a limitation, not just the size of the wallet. I'm saying the wallet manufacturer actually has restrictions, if some way they could do that, on what credentials you could put in that wallet. I want to make sure the question's clear. Okay. All right, so I'm going to go through and just count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 yeses that people would buy a wallet. Or no, 6. I picked up a 6 one there. Okay, 34 no. Okay. All right, that's very helpful. Let's keep that in mind. Now let's talk about banks. Again, another really straightforward question. I'm going to clear all now on that total. Would you ever choose to use a bank that would not let you move to another bank? Move your money, move your accounts. Same thing. Yes, you would do that, or no, you wouldn't. I'm going to give this a minute for folks to respond. This time I'm not seeing any yeses, which doesn't surprise me that much. Okay, Timothy, tell me as soon as you think you got a good count. I don't know if host, yeah, you've got that. Okay, that's I think what I expected. All right, Now, let's move on to phones. And I'm not saying these are the only two phones out there, but we have been talking quite a bit about these two manufacturers. So now, really straight, right down the middle of the bowling alley question. Would you choose a phone that will lock you into, I should have put an SSI digital wallet, the kind of digital wallet that I'm talking about here? Again, yes, if you would choose a phone that would lock you in, or no, if you wouldn't. Okay, I'm going to give it just a minute here. I'm seeing 1, 2, 3, 4 yeses, 5, 6 yeses. Mostly no's. Okay. All right. Okay, that's good. Thank you, Timothy, very much. All right, I'll clear that up because I do have one more question that we'll finish up on here, or actually I think there are 2 more in just a minute. Okay, I love it. Thank you, Ned, for asking that question. What's an example of a phone's proprietary wallet? Okay, I'm going to admit I am an iPhone user here. I'll hold this up here. The wallet in this phone does not let me, I can use the credentials any place that an Apple wallet will be accepted, but I can't move those credentials any place. If I put credentials in this wallet, they are locked in this wallet. It is a proprietary wallet. What we've been describing with the Trust RP stack is the opposite of that. It is a wallet that if we're successful in the market, right? If like the internet, what the market demands is open standards, then you will be able to at least download and use a wallet that will be portable. You can move it to another device. You can change and choose another wallet and move into that one. That's a portable wallet. And if it eventually goes that way, and we do believe, I think a number of us in the industry, just was on a conversation about this earlier today, the capabilities of wallets will do exactly what they're doing with these phones today. They will move down into the operating system. So they will come with your phone. But the question is, what kind of wallet will come with your phone? The wallet comes today is proprietary. It's not portable. The credential is not portable. The keys or the cryptographic verification, the DIDs that you'll put in there, they're not portable. So this is an example of what's not portable. And now we'll see, what's going to happen here. All right, so I think I framed it up. Whoops, put this down and not drop my phone and lose my existing wallet. This is why I frame it that while this looks like, okay, it's digital identity technology and oh, it might be my address book, if that wallet is actually heart of how you communicate on the internet and you prove your identity and you exchange your money and you communicate securely and exchange data securely, what we're talking about here is the future of the internet, a key piece of the future of the internet. And today, the car you're driving down that road of the internet is clearly the browser. And that's why the browser wars were so important. But I think I've made it clear that's not where the stakes are going to go. As this gets built into your browser or into your operating system, future of the internet is going to be controlled by that digital wallet. And the keys and DIDs that you have in there that are personal to you as an individual, that are core to the operation of your organization, or that actually, are how you're controlled as an Internet of Things device. Okay, it doesn't matter. SSI is not just for people and not just for organizations. It's also the whole IoT. There's SSI and IoT working group at the Sovereign Foundation that's about to publish a 40-page white paper on SSI and IoT. So all of this is at stake. And the question is, who's going to control that? Is it going to be you? Or is it going to be the situation we have today where that is controlled by big tech and they are hitching a ride on you wherever you're going on the internet? Yeah, I chose the Facebook like button and then I realized, oh my God, that's actually if you look at it closely, that's the hitchhiking signal. You don't see that much out there today, but that is what potentially could be going on where we're going here in the future. All right, now I'm going to close now here. We're going to leave plenty of time for questions. You might be wondering, do I have a choice, right? Can I make a difference on this? Well, I want to actually ask you that as a question here. Do you think that you personally can affect the future of the internet in this choice around the openness or closeness of who will control your digital wallet? Yeah, yes, if you think that however big or small, you will actually have an impact on that. Please vote now. This will be really fascinating. We'll give ourselves a minute. Oh, I'm seeing a lot of green there. And I'm seeing a couple of reds, and it's entirely understandable. Okay, that is super. I'm gonna give it 5 more. Okay, thanks, Timothy. We got 30 yes, 10 no. All right, I'm gonna clear up there because I'm gonna ask another question that might frame the way you think about that slightly differently. If you're a US citizen, are you planning to vote in the upcoming election? Now, again, no one's gonna hold you to this, but just what are you planning to do as a citizen in this election? Yes, you're planning to vote, green, and okay. I'm seeing at least one no. But and again, if you're not a U.S. citizen, please don't vote because I am talking about this election, this particular election. All right, can others bring a vote.org? That's great. All right, thanks very much, Timothy, for doing that. All right, well, I think you see my point. It might be small, but you always have a choice. We all can make a difference here, and it's I think an even bigger one than just voting. Voting is a very important right, but what you choose to use as a tool for your own personal or business use of the internet, of digital infrastructure, is going to make a difference. And I'm going to close by simply saying, please choose wisely. And that's all I have, and I really look forward to discussing this with you. So, Timothy, into Q&A.
Right. Well, thanks, Drummond. I'd like to just open it up to any questions that folks have. Please add them to the chat, and we'll give Drummond an opportunity to kind of share. But also, we want to just be mindful of everyone's time as well. Let's take a couple questions. Aaron, you're probably going to school me through how to do this the best way or most effective way. So looks like we got a couple questions coming in. So Drummond, looks like one of the first questions is, what is the business case for an organization to build and support the evolution of a wallet?
Oh, that is extremely excellent. Pierre's almost got an unfair advantage. I'm going to give him a commercial for, he is, as you can see there, the founder of the Digital ID Lab of Canada. Of course, where else? Canada. That's where, that's one of those. But I'm really glad he's doing it because he's literally going to be, offering, and he's got some support from the Canadian government and others, and I hope gets it from all around the world to do the testing and certification that we talked about at those different levels. It is a really good question. So I would say the business case, it does depend how much your business might directly depend on that. I would put it in 3 categories. Obviously, if you're a vendor in the space, Evernym or the other companies, a lot of the early founders, TrustRIP. If you're a vendor in the space and you want to see the space, go the direction of the internet, open and available to everyone, we have a direct stake. The next ring out, I would say, is anyone that wants, again, any organization or individual that's, Pierre asked about organizations, who say it's important to your business or your ecosystem that it have the same values as the internet, meaning everyone can use it and it can be portable and open, and we can have the level of innovation and freedom that we have with the internet, okay? May not be that the wall is directly important, but having that around your business. The third ring out is flat out, if your organization cares about, the future of the internet, digital society, and literally freedom and keeping a competitive landscape for the internet as a whole, then please do come in and support. And there are multiple efforts, not just Trust over IP, but the open source that's going on, even funding or helping with support of the Digital ID Lab. All those things will contribute to that.
Nice. We've got another question. There's actually a bunch of questions coming in, so just kind of picking them as they kind of pop up here. There was a question around milestones on widespread adoption, and specifically, kind of what do you see in terms of sort of milestones on this roadmap of widespread adoption?
Another fantastic question. I'm happy to say that the first two milestones, when SSI first emerged as an idea, like I said, identity and digital identity and blockchain had a baby. The first two milestones were, okay, when can we get to the first, you sort of call it foundational open standards? Check. September of last year, and getting, for verifiable credentials, close to a check now on DIDs, and others are on the way. The second one was first production credentials. And by say production credentials, I mean credentials in the hands of real, being issued by organizations to real individuals, real digital wallets used for real, business or governmental purposes. As much as all of what I've talked about here and all the work that's gone into it, we actually really reached that milestone in the last few months. Besides the NHS that I talked about there, Member Pass, an initiative of the credit unions, largely in the US and Canada, but also around the world, to develop a standard credential of credit union membership. It's called Member Pass. The first credit union started issuing them several months ago. I think the leading one has now issued over 10,000 of them, and it is getting a great reception. They're going, oh, wow, I have one way of proving on the phone, or if I go in, or if I log in, who I am, cuts out all the 20 questions, and that's just the very start of it. So that was my second milestone, production credentials. We are so early in that. I feel like if you ever looked at the graph of websites on the web, right? Starts very thin, very narrow, and then it's just classic power law, and then it starts to take off. We're going to go through exactly the same thing here. The next major milestone I'm looking for is a credential issued by a government institution, not to a specialized thing like doctors and nurses, NHS. That's pretty good, but to citizens, right? So the first government-issued credential to a citizen. I think there are several countries in a race to get there. I won't name them, although you can probably guess who one of them is. But I think that's definitely coming. And I'll put one more out there, which is the first credential that has a business model behind it that is explicit, as in, that when you're using that credential, the verifier is paying for it. Whether they're paying you or they're paying the issuer of the credential. I think both of those models, we will see both of them. The credentials we're seeing out there right now are being sponsored by organizations, but we're going towards the business of SSI. And when we hit that, and the final one I'll put out there is the first OS-based wallet. We're going to see a bunch of great wallets about when the first OS manufacturers, it could be Samsung, Google, Apple, Microsoft, whoever is actually down at that level. When we see that, we will know we're on the other side. I hope that's a comprehensive enough answer.
It actually leads to one of the other questions that was asked, Drummond. Someone said that who bears the cost of transitioning from their existing federated systems to SSI, and what are the economic incentives associated with it?
Oh, wow, that one's super deep.
Yeah.
I actually believe that there's a very significant thing there, which is just as the internet pushed the cost of networking out into the infrastructure so that companies didn't have to maintain, more expensive lands that they were, it's a little bit like, I was not aware for a long time, the early history of power, right? I'm talking about electrical power. Companies ran their own power, little mini power grids, power stations, and it was very expensive. They had to run their own infrastructure, but they had electricity. When we moved to the power grid and electricity as a utility, commoditized and dropped it by, I think, like 2 orders of magnitude, the cost. I believe that is going on right now. Federation has cut down on the cost of identity, but it's still, you have to integrate with the identity provider in every federation. With SSI and decentralized technology, with trust over IP, you're going to be able to adopt a standard stack. It's going to start being, built in. It's going to take care of a whole bunch of things for you, and we will drive down the costs. And it won't be just of identity. We're also going to drive down the cost of authorization and a number of things that depend on it. and really squeeze out a lot of cost while at the same time improving security and privacy. That's a pretty great equation.
There's a question that came in from Timothy Ruff. He said, Drummond, what's your crystal ball for SSI adoption within higher education, and what are your thoughts on how achievements will play out?
There's this guy at ASU that's working on that. What's his name? Summers something. Who really should be? I mean, do you want me to answer that question, or should you answer that question, Timothy?
I mean, the question was to you. You know, I this isn't my talk.
All right, I'm going to give you a very pointed answer. I love the Internet of Education. I think it is a fantastic North Star or BHAG, whatever you want to call it. But let us not, please, or let that industry not try and swallow the elephant in one bite. Start local. Start with, you know, I love it. Timothy, you and I have talked about ASU should have a digital student ID card, right? The Sun Devil, the eSun Devil, right? Bingo. Deliver that. The technology is there for that today. And you know, other universities even start at the lower level. I mean, micro credentials around, you know, your online learning programs, right? ASU is one of the, you know, most online university, leading online university in the world. Introduce just things that have real value, even if it's small, because and use open standards and make sure it's open, because as those come out there, it's like suddenly you have a reason to get a browser. When you had a browser and you go to the first website, now you want to go to the second and the third. It's going to go the same way. So if we start seeing the first credentials come out and the first proofs of value, then I think it'll just be a matter of how it ramps. But if folks stay focused on, oh, let's go swallow the whole elephant in a bite, it'll take a long time.
Wow, you know, this has been a really incredible conversation and discussion. Really, just hearing from you, Drummond. I think you know, there was even a comment in the chat that we needed a crystal ball for you. So I want to thank you again for joining us, Drummond. I think there is a poll that we're asking folks to fill in for us right now. Thank you so much for doing that. This really helps us with regard to fine tuning the sessions and getting, you know, more really exciting guest speakers like Drummond. You know, and this is a community for us, and just to keep building and keep expanding and asking hard questions. So Drummond, you know, today I think this was probably definitely one of the deepest conversations or talks that I've heard in a while. So thanks again, man.
I'm super happy. You can tell I'm extremely passionate about this topic. I told my wife when I was coming into my home office to do this, I said, you know, the world's got to end because I want to make sure that we get this webinar. And I love the chat here and the number of questions and suggestions. There's tremendous energy, as you can tell, Timothy, around SSI. And I think, you know, it's no coincidence that the internet itself first came out of the combination of, interesting enough, you know, education and the military, right? Education, government. The web, where was it born, right? CERN, it was education. And then it rapidly, again, military, government. I would love to see the Internet of Education lead out and show, you know, once I started getting Steve, beginning literally the session, you and your team, but then going to the Department of Education and their blockchain workshop back in January, my eyes were so wide open. I was like, okay, Internet of Education, if there's one thing I want to make sure SSA gets right, it's to do that. So I thank every person that's attended today, and I hope each of you goes and says, all right, how am I going to help push the SSI ball forward? And all of you can sign up to help Timothy with his mission of making it work at ASU.
And Drummond, you know what? I've got to, you know, just, you know, this is, you know, I enjoy catching up with you, and this is just off the cuff here, because of just the interest in the conversation around this. You know, one of the things that our team's been talking about is maybe doing a panel, you know, and I'm just curious if you'd be, you know, interested and willing to maybe join us on a panel if we were going to do such on talking about SSI.
Oh, no, I'm really pretty shy about this stuff. I'm not sure I should go talk on it. Absolutely. In fact, the irony is, on your guest list here on this, you've got like 3 panels worth of experts,
right?
Because we made sure folks at Trust European Sovereign Foundation, other places were aware of this. So love to do that. Love to do it. You just let us know. really, thank you again for ASU. We welcome not just you, Timothy, and your team, but any ASU student or staff. You're a member of Trusted RP. All of your students and staff are welcome to go in and participate in the Slack or the mailing list or we have working groups and task forces and now even focus groups. So anything that we can do to help, our job is to help you be successful with SSI and Trusted RP.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. And thank you everyone for joining. You can keep in touch with us through the meetup group. And we look forward to seeing you all in the next Innov8. Thanks everyone.